Welcome beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. Welcome to Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy, and joining me today is Robert Lee Camp. He delved very deeply into yoga before becoming a master astrologer. In 1988, he discovered the science of the cards and found their accuracy astounding. And then, after learning more, he dedicated himself to sharing this ancient system and made significant contributions to the field. Robert has provided readings for Hollywood celebrities and published successful books like The Cards of Your Destiny and Love Cards. His work has reached global audiences and translations are available in various languages. And Robert, I'm thrilled to have you here. This is such a fascinating topic. I couldn't wait to share it with our listeners. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit more background about the cards and how you found them?
So I was already practicing astrology. I had started doing readings. I had been doing it for about a year. And so people in my community knew that I was doing this astrology. And one of the women there said, "Hey, you're into astrology, check out this book." And she handed me this book that was published in 1945 called Sacred Symbols of the Ancients. And in that book, it had a list of all the birthdays and what card you were, and it had a chapter for each card, pretty much like my Love Cards book is. So I looked up my card and I read about my card, and it was so accurate that it just floored me, not only because it knew like the intimate details of some of the biggest challenges in my life, but also it blew my mind because there were 8 birthdays that have my same card, and I could not figure out, how is this possible? How is this accurate? Because in astrology, it's date, time, place. I mean, it's so specific, but 8 birthdays of the year, any year you want, are going to have the same card as me. But I couldn't deny that it was just so accurate for me. So I immediately got that book and read it, and I was just taken with it. And then I went on to look for other books, and I couldn't find any. I couldn't find any other books on it. Like, there were all these books on cars, but they were crazy. They were like Thoreau and all kinds of other things. They weren't this system. And so after about a year of using it, I just kind of set it down because I thought, well, it's great and I like it, but I can't find anything else about it. And then we moved to Los Angeles, and my wife had a yoga client that came in and saw the Sacred Symbols book on my shelf. And she says, "Oh, you have that book? There's a guy in town that wrote a book also, and he's teaching some classes." And I said, "Really?" And I got his phone number and I signed up for the class. His name was Arnie Lean. He wrote a book called What's Your Card? And I went to his classes, and then the whole rest of it was unveiled, like how there were yearly spreads of cards and you could predict what was going to happen. I felt like I had really tapped into something really special. And I took as many classes as I could. He was ill when I met him, and he only lived about a year after I met him. He died within a year of me meeting him. So I took as many classes as he would give me because he wasn't feeling that well, and it was difficult for him. Then he passed away, and I decided to write a book because he was working on a book, but he wasn't able to finish it. And it was going to have the yearly spreads in it and all how to predict your future and all that stuff. But it never got finished. And the people that were managing his estate were all fighting over the rights to it. And to this day, it's never been published. It could have been published. They're still fighting over it. So I said, well, I'm just going to sidestep these people and write the book myself. And I felt like his presence was with me when I was writing it, helping me to write the interpretations and so forth. And that's where I got started. And I realized after a while, this is what I had been waiting for in my life. I was waiting for a special purpose, and I felt like this was it. It fit perfectly. And now I could really begin the work I was meant to do.
Yeah.
And that was 31 years ago. So
wow. Destiny, right?
Actually, more than that. So now it's like 34 years. Yeah, it was fate. It was absolutely fate. I mean, we all have that in different areas, right? That was my big one that got me on the path that I've been on since then.
Yeah, I love the synchronicity of you searching. It didn't work out, and then you moved, and just like that, you meet somebody.
We weren't even there 2 weeks when this woman showed up and told me about him and his book and his classes. And yeah, I mean, that was pretty amazing. LA was good for me. It was a good place to start my work, my business. It's good for contacts. It's a horrible place to live, one of the worst places in the world to live. Pollution, noise, crime. But as far as business goes, it was very, very good. And I'm happy I got my start there,
Yeah.
There was a lot of support for the success of it.
You mentioned the other kinds of cards that are out there. Tarot and other, oracle cards, I guess, are pretty popular today. But these cards, a deck of playing cards, what is really special about these cards and where do they come from?
Well, everybody, there's so many cards out there that people you can just make up a deck. That's what people are doing. They're just making up a deck. You're putting some nice pictures in it and write a book to tell people how to interpret it, and you shuffle them and you lay them out. And then you hope for the best. Hope you get something good, right? So this is completely different than that. This is completely mathematical. This system of the regular deck of playing cards is connected directly to the cycles of planet Earth. If you look at the deck of cards, the number values in the cards, everything syncs up perfectly. And I mean, just obvious is 52 days and 52 weeks, 52 cards in a deck. I mean, 52 weeks in a year, 13 cards in each suit, 13 full moons every year, 4 suits, 4 seasons, red and black for night and day. And if you take all the numbers on every card in the deck, with ace being a 1, up to 10, and then the jack is 11, queens are 12, kings are 13. If you add up the entire deck, it comes to 365, the exact number of days in a year. No other card system does that. This is the only one. This is the original card system of all, even though a lot of Tarot people would like to believe that Tarot came before that. They get all huffy about it, but it's obvious that it didn't. And this system is mathematically attuned exactly to planet Earth. And every day of the year is assigned one of the 52 cards by a mathematical formula. Again, it's all mathematical. It's very interesting. So in this system, every card for your whole life, and there are cards for every 52 days of your life, and every year of your life, and every 7 years of your life. These are all calculated by the moment of your birth. That's it. Like when you're born, boom, there you are, and you don't have to shuffle cards. I do teach a weekly reading that people shuffle regular cards and lay them out. It's a tool to basically teach people how to interpret them better, but everything in the system is already laid out for you. There's no guessing. And then what's really cool about it is it has your past, it has your present, and it has your future. You can go back in your past and say, oh, okay, I got married in this year. Let me see if there's a marriage card. You can test it. I tell people to test it. I tell them to, I said, don't believe this. Don't believe the system. Go test it for yourself. See if it's accurate. Everybody's like blown away. It's so amazing. I mean, I get emails from people almost every day about, how the cards foretold what was happening, going to happen, and how they were prepared for it and so forth. And, it makes me very happy. This is, in my opinion, the most accurate and easy to learn system that's available to us right now on the planet, of mystical sciences. There is just no other one that is just so accurate and so easy to use and so easy to learn. You can learn it in a half an hour,
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just read the first 15, 20 pages of the Cards of Your Destiny and you're doing readings.
Wow. But we know the cards because we play rummy or, blackjack or things
poker.
like that, or poker. And that's how we're using these cards. So there's this whole other hidden world to these cards that we never have known about, because I've never heard of this before. Why not?
I had never heard of it either. I was like, wow. I was just amazed by it, I was just amazed that nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this country western song called "A Deck of Cards." You might have heard it. It's an old song. I think it was written back in the 40s, and it's about this guy who's in jail, and they're saying to him, "Don't you want to go to church? It's Sunday." He says, and he's got a deck of cards. He says, I have the whole Bible here in my hand. And he talks about the four kings, which are the disciples of Jesus, John, Luke, Mark, and so forth, and the queens, which are like, Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, and the Marys and the Marthas in the Bible and so forth. And he talks about how the cards match the calendar in that song. So it's been known for a while, but who knows how that information got out, It's cool. You can look it up online. You can look up "A Deck of Cards," the song, and you'll see, it's really old, like old country western music,
Yeah, I got to look that up now. But so you're talking about the future and the present and testing it, which I love this thing about testing it, because the other card systems people are using are really intuitive, I think. And, it's more of a tool of intuition. And the fact that we can test this, I think it really sets it apart. In my mind.
You don't have to be intuitive. You don't have to be psychic. You don't have. I was studying Thoreau for about a year just prior to when this system appeared in my life, and I never got results from Thoreau myself that I could feel good about. Like, I never really knew if I was getting the truth or if it was really real or not. I was hoping it was real, and I was learning from a really good teacher. And, she was psychic. So I've come to the conclusion that Tarot is for people that are psychic. It's just a tool that they use to express their psychic ability through. That's my opinion on it anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a system that is, the first book ever published on it is called The Mystic Test Book. That was published in 1894. And he says in there, I called it the Mystic Test Book because you can test it.
Yeah.
That.
I just think that's really remarkable. You said that the birth card, you mentioned the birth card. So is that the most important card? There's so many other cards in the deck. So I would think that they all have a place.
Well, your birth card is like your astrological natal chart. It's the karma it displays the good and bad karma you were born with. There are a couple of other cards that we use. They're called ruling cards, which are just like the birth card. They're strong parts of our identity, and we have those traits for good and bad, there's a good and bad to every card. There's no such thing as a good card or a bad card. They can all be expressed either positive or negative. And every person is a combination of some of the good and some of the bad of the card. When you're not feeling good, you're probably expressing the negative of the card. And when you're feeling great, you're probably expressing the positive of the card. But the potential for the good and the bad is in each person for every card. But there's specific traits for each card. There's specific karmas for each card. And these karmas tell you like what this person's life is going to be like. It's so if you knew astrology really well, you can get very similar information from astrology. And I use both. I've been doing astrology and the cards now for over 30 years. And I find that they dovetail beautifully. And what's cool about it is sometimes the cards know stuff that astrology doesn't, and vice versa. And it's not really the cards know. It's just that I don't know enough about astrology to know everything, but the cards will be accurate, even though I can't find it in the astrology. And then it'll happen the opposite. Astrology will tell me something about the person or their life that I can't see in the cards. So, I think any valid system will give you consistent results. You'll get something similar from each one. And I find that the astrology and the cards match up just beautifully, like the traits. I can almost predict people's birthday when I just meet them. Like they'll just tell me what month they were born, and I can often pick the day they were born because I can see the traits being expressed in them of a certain card, and I'll take a guess. And I've been right more often than I've been wrong. Doing that it's a fun exercise for me.
Oh, yeah. I bet going to a party is a whole nother experience for you.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess maybe I can be annoying too. I don't know. Asking everybody their birthday, and and then I can start telling them things about themselves. And whenever I see a couple that has a baby, I always want to know the baby's birthday. And I want to tell them something good about their child.
Oh,
Based on my experience, like this child is going to be like an artist, really successful artist, or this child is really going to be super smart, or this daughter of yours, she'll never get married. Just a few days ago, I was talking to a couple. We were at the 4th of July away, and their daughter was just born, and she was the same birthday as Britney Spears. And that's a very unstable birthday, super unstable, So, I said, well, she's not going to be like you guys, all settled down and married and happy. She's going to be a little bit of a wild child, and that's how it's going to be.
Well, you put it really nicely.
She's a 3 and a 5, a 3 and a 5 together. That's odd numbered cards are unstable,
Oh, okay.
They tend to be unstable. Like they can be really great at things. That's not like a 3s are really creative, like artists and so forth. But their personal lives are usually in shambles because they can't make up their mind. They change a lot. They're dissatisfied. They want to keep moving, So when you're an odd numbered card, like a 3, 5, 7, or 9, you've got issues that are a little bit more obvious and out there than people who are 4s and 6s and 8s, whose life seems to go along so smoothly and steadily, and not with a lot of changes, not with a lot of drama. Whereas the 3s, 5s, 7s, and 9s have lots of drama going on. You see.
Oh,
No, it's
that's
not just
interesting.
It's not just those cards though, because there are other cards that have, like my card, the Queen of Diamonds, has 2 3s, 2 9s, and 2 7s, and 2 5s, all in my life spread. Like there's a spread of cards for each of us that starts with the birth card and it extends out like 13 cards. And so those 13 cards tell you what your particular karma is in each little area, little category of your life, like your relationships, money, health, longevity. These things are talked about. So the Queen of Diamonds life spread, all the cards are odd numbered cards, all of them, all the way to the end.
Wow.
It's funny. So, even though I'm not a 3 or 5, I'm going to have a lot of traits like a 3 or a 5 because of all those 3s and 5s and
Oh,
7s and 9s in my life spread. Yeah.
well, you mentioned about the birth card thing. And what if somebody is born around midnight on a day? Does that
Well,
change
yeah,
anything?
yeah, well, you have to know exactly the so we have what's called when you're born, your birth time is recorded, right? But we are using we're not using real time, we're using an agreed upon time for a time zone. So like I'm in the Eastern time zone myself right now. Okay, it goes all the way to Maine, and it goes from Maine almost to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So the actual time could be an hour different than what we would say would be sundial time at any given time, like the observed time. They call it the observed time. Okay. So if you're born close to midnight, you could be the day before or the day after, depending on, like, if it was daylight savings time, for example, you automatically subtract an hour from your recorded time of birth. So if you were born at like 12:30 in the morning, you're actually born at 11:30 the previous day. So,
Oh,
so it is important if you're born near midnight to find out exactly what day you're born. Otherwise, you could be reading about the wrong card and it really wouldn't make any sense, you know.
right.
And I've
Yeah.
helped a lot of people calculate that because you have to know the longitude of the birthplace, you got to know the time zone, blah, blah, blah. There's just some little math involved in that
Yeah. More math,
sometimes.
more science in
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
but the daylight savings time really it makes it easy. Like if you're born during daylight savings, you can just knock an hour off your time right off the bat, your observed time, and you're probably, if you're close to midnight, you're probably going to be the previous day.
Ah, oh, yeah, that's really good to know.
Yeah,
How, when you do readings, you said there's a whole spread and um, all all of these other cards, and so
yeah.
how,
So there's a life spread that I mentioned, right?
mhm.
And then every year you have a new yearly spread, and this yearly spread is divided up into two basic groups of cards. Those cards that influence the entire year from one birthday to the next. It starts on your birthday, by the way, not on January 1st. So there's like, for most people, there's 5 cards that influence the entire year. And then you have every 52 days, you have a set of cards. You have 2 cards. Okay. So there's more cards too. It gets confusing, but basically, if you just focus on these 2 cards for each 52 days. So the first period of the year, on your birthday, it starts the Mercury period. Mercury is the first period. Okay. So this period is ruled by Mercury, and things in the Mercury period happen quickly, and they're not really usually very substantial. It's good for short trips because Mercury rules cars and driving around in your car and motorcycle, bicycles, and things of that nature. So it's good for communications because Mercury is all about communications. But nothing, if you have a really bad card in Mercury, it won't really be that bad. And if you have a really good card in Mercury, it really won't be that great. It'll be like, because Mercury is not substantial. And then 52 days later, you go into your second period, which is the Venus period. And Venus has to do with the home, the family, your house, your marriage partner, your relationships in general, because Venus rules relationships. So it goes on like that: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. You have these 7 periods that the year. And isn't it interesting when you take the number of days in the year and divide it by 7, you get 52. And each of these periods is 52 days. And there's, like there's 7 days in the week and there's 7 periods of the year. It just, people that are into math really love this system because
Yeah,
it just all clicks. It just like clicks.
yeah,
Everything about it. And it's all 7s and 9s. Uh,
7s and 9s. Hmm.
7 is and 9s are the 2 spiritual numbers. 7 sits at the very center of the deck of each suit, from the ace to the king. Right in the middle is the 7.
Oh,
And sevens and nines, when you get them in your reading, they're talking about problems. because
really?
because spirituality, true spirituality, is going to want to help us in a way that we often don't want to be helped. Like it's going to create a situation that's difficult so that we can realize that we have something that we're holding on to internally that's blocking our energy. So that situation will come up with a seven and nine, or a nine. And all of a sudden we'll be confronted with this painful situation that we don't like, but it helps us to go within and see what's going on here. See?
Mm.
So that I use a term called spiritual cycles and material cycles. Like everybody will have, like some years will be more spiritually oriented, and there's a lot of challenges. And then there'll be these material years where they just, they're making a lot of money, they got love, and everything seems to be going really good. That's a material cycle. Now, which one is better? Well, it depends on what you really want in your life, right? Uh, so, but every year we'll have some positive and negative influences, in different periods. So you have like a year-long cards that are like the themes for the whole year, and then you have, for these 52-day periods, you have cards that tell you specifically what's going to happen and often who it's going to happen with, because these cards that you see in your spread could be somebody you know.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's really good to right away to look up your spouse, your children, your parents, people you work with. Look up their card, see who they are, because you want to see, are they showing up in my spread this year?
Oh,
Are they showing up there?
are there? So I would have to imagine that it's really important what an individual's card is and who they have in their life. I mean, it's got to be a compatibility thing, right? I mean, are there certain cards that should like never get together, like they're oil and water, or
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
really? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh
Yeah.
boy.
Well, there's a complete, this system, besides having this prediction aspect of these yearly spreads, it also has a really amazing relationship compatibility aspect to it that's detailed in my love cards book.
Mm-hmm.
But also we have software. But I mean, you can really tell. I'll just give you an example. Let's say, like, everybody's got a Venus card in their life spread, a Mars card, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So your Saturn card is somebody that, if you're with them, whoever your particular Saturn card is, if you met somebody that card, they're going to criticize you. They're going to withhold from you. They're going to always be using this should word, like you should do this, you should do that. And they're not even doing it consciously, but that's what the energy calls for. So that would be a terrible choice for a marriage.
Right.
Okay. It would be great for a doctor, maybe a lawyer, somebody you're needing guidance from, but not for somebody as a friend or a love person or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. What came to my mind was, do you have a dating app, Robert, where
We tried one once. We tried to do a dating website, but we didn't do it well enough. So it's still out there. It needs to be done. It needs to be done because it is amazing. It is amazing. I mean, like, for example, if your card is right next to somebody's card, like you're a 6 of clubs, if you met as 5 of clubs or a 7 of clubs, you would get along famously with them. You guys would just hit it off because your cards are so close. There's communication there. There's a sense of belonging there. As a matter of fact, most marriages have that connection. We call it the moon connection, the sun-moon connection. I mean, all of my marriages, I had that. I'd say probably 75 to 80% of marriages will have a strong moon connection. And I see it in celebrities. I see it everywhere, because that particular connection encourages marriage. It does, So that's an example. So that's just one of the moon. There's other ones too, but then there's a Venus connection. That means you have things in common. You like doing things together. That's really important for relationships. Having a Venus connection. Everybody has a Venus card. You have more than one Venus card, really.
Yeah.
And so, like this system, like you could go to seventhunders.com, my website, and order a relationship report, because that does it completely, and read it, what it says about your relationship, and just see for yourself. Just test it. Pick somebody, your partner, your child. You can do a relationship with a child and a parent. You can choose that when you order the report. You can choose that interpretation. The connections will be the same, but it's the interpretation would be written for that kind of relationship.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so it has these two major things that I think are pretty much everything everybody wants. Everybody wants to know their future, and they want to know how are they compatible with their partner. But there are some birthdays that really should never even get married.
So some actual just days, like you're born on that day and it's like, just kind of forget about it.
Well, you have so much things. Certain birthdays have so much energy that goes against commitment.
Oh.
Like fives, for example. People that are fives, Britney Spears is a five. One of her cards is a five. I talked about her. Freedom is everything to them. And anything that looks like taking away their freedom, they're not into that. And marriage looks like a prison to a five. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's going to be looking that up.
Taylor Swift is a five.
Oh, yeah.
She might get married at one point in her life, because fives also have this unique thing where they want to try everything once. They want to try it, right? So you'll see fives that get married because they want to try it, but they don't like it. They don't really want to be married. They don't want to be tied down. Or they might have a marriage where there's just no rules, I'm not making any promises. I have a good friend here in town. She's a five of diamonds. And she said, when I got married to my husband, I said, no vows, no promises.
Ooh, wow.
And he went along with it.
Wow.
They're still married, by the way, but that's a five thing, see? So there's a lot of cards. There's cards that would prefer to date a married person. They like secret affairs. There's cards that their career is much more important than any relationship. There's just all sorts of variety here. There's people that are dominating. If you were married to them, they would try to control you so heavily. And they are doing it. They're doing it right now. These people are already doing it. There's just so much. So the book Love Cards kind of tells you all. There's a whole chapter, by the way, in the Love Cards book about marriageability, I call it. Who's marriageable and who's not. And it tells you every card, how marriageable they are and why, the reasons why for each one, like the freedom thing, can't make up their mind thing, whatever. There's like 7 or 8 different factors that can interfere with having a successful marriage. Your card's very marriageable. 6 of clubs, very marriageable card. Okay.
Oh, that's nice.
Mine, I'm in my 5th marriage.
Oh, well,
And I share a birthday with Tom Cruise, and he's had 3, I think, so far. He'll catch up.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. That's really funny. I'm thinking this is like dynamite, Robert. I mean, literal dynamite, because people, if you look things up and you have these relationships in your life and you look this up, this could change everything.
People love it because when they get the books and they read about their kids and their spouse, everything seems to kind of come together, kind of fits together. Now they see the pattern, like, oh, look, my husband is the same card as my dad. I married my dad. Or I married my mom. I've seen there's, you can just see karma being played out here it's really like, this is a map. I used to call astrology chart a map of your karma, and it is. The cards are the same thing. It's a map of karma, like that you brought with you from past lives that will play out in this lifetime. And you'll have a chance to revisit all of this karma and to elevate it to a higher level. See?
Well,
So
yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
it is
Have you?
dynamite, though. What you're saying is true. It's dynamite. I mean, people absolutely love it. They love knowing what's going on. Like they kind of get a peek behind the curtain of what's happening in their life, and they get a mirror of themselves that they can use to grow with. See?
Yeah. Well, I think it's dynamite in that way, but it's dynamite too because I could see it just blowing up relationships,
I do business I have people work for me from time to time, or I'll go into a partnership of, some kind of financial, and I always check their birthday ahead of time, because some birthdays are just not good for me. They're
Yeah.
just not good for me. And I'm not good for them either, usually. So it would be like a waste of energy if we got together and tried something. So I always want to know everyone's birthday and how they connect with me and how we connect together. And is it going to be advantageous for both of us to be together? See? So,
Wow. I feel like I've been so reckless my whole life because I didn't do the background.
Well, I think you find these things. I think people discover this system when they're ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't ready for it for a long time. And when it showed up, actually, it really wasn't, even though I learned this from Arnie Lean, who had written a book, and there was another book that had been written about it, there was a lot of it that hadn't really been actually discovered, that I was able to discover by using it for years, just things. I mean, there's so much that we use now that it wasn't distinguished. And there's probably more in this system that hasn't been discovered. We're still making discoveries, we're still making discoveries about, and it's getting to more fine-tuned stuff, as we go through the years,
Yeah.
There's so much here. There's, people want to know what's coming up. And I think I told you you're going to have a great year this year.
Yes. Yes. You did tell me that.
With your career.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting in what I call an auspicious place. It's known that when people sit there for the year, their card moves to that position, that their career goes uphill quite a bit.
Wow.
Their popularity becomes more. They become more well-known. If they're in a job, they get a raise, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I bought your books and I made the list of all the people in my life and I went through and I started looking everybody up. And I have to say, I saw one of my son's cards and I thought, oh, made me a little sad, and I don't want to really say too much about it, but,
Sure.
But as a mom, I was like, oh, And that made me want to ask you, do you have people who find out their cards or have a reading and they get upset because what they're hearing isn't really what they want to hear or it's disappointing?
Sometimes, I mean, they'll have sort of a expectation. I remember meeting somebody a long time ago, and I said, "Oh, you're a 2 of diamonds." And she goes, "Just a 2?"
Oh,
I'm just a 2. I go, "You're the card that makes the most money."
oh, wow.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah.
And
So,
aces in this system are not the top card; they're the lowest card.
oh, I
People,
like that because it takes what we think we know, the labels or the judgment of it, and it really kind of turns it upside down,
An ace person is a person that's got a lot of fire in the belly and they're ambitious, but they have no wisdom. So they're making all the mistakes in their passionate drive to succeed and to do things. They stumble a lot because they don't have the experience like a king or a queen does. See, kings and queens and jacks, and they've gone through a lot of life experiences, and they tend to have more wisdom, which comes through experience, you know.
Right. Well, you made me think of those cards, the ones with the actual figures, jacks, queens, kings. And there's a couple of them that are turned to the side. And with this deck being so specific about every little thing, and there's meaning with the number, the color, the suit, what what does it mean if it's one-eyed? If like a one-eyed jack, does that
Okay,
have
so first of
significance?
all, yeah, it does. But first of all, the direction they're pointing is not significant because different card manufacturers will do it different ways. So one deck will point this way and one point will point this way. But one eye is
Oh,
always consistent. And there's two one-eyed jacks and there's a one-eyed king. Okay.
uh-huh.
So the one-eyed jacks are the jack of hearts and the jack of spades. And these people tend to see things only one way. They're blind to a certain segment part of life. You understand? And
Yeah.
and and they can just they can and the king of diamonds is the one-eyed king, and they can just block you off. So the one-eyed cards, there's only three of them. They don't get the whole picture, but they don't really care. You understand?
Yeah.
But but when you're dealing with them, you have to realize that they're really kind of narrowly focused in their life. And of course, the jack of hearts, is narrowly focused in the areas of love and relationships because they're a heart, you know. And the jack of spades is like called the thief card. Okay. They're so creative that, like Mel Gibson is his jack of spades, for example. You know, they're so super hyper creative, and they can easily become thieves because they don't really feel like the rules of the world apply to them, you know, and they'll see things their own way. I mean, I've always loved Mel Gibson, but he had some bad press, you know, a while back because he was being very bigoted and all this other stuff, you know. So that one-eyed part came out for him at one point.
Mm.
Clark Gable was a jack of spades also, if you remember who he is.
Yeah.
I think Priscilla Presley, I believe, is a jack of spades. Um, there's there's a lot to learn. Like, you get to know all these cards, you know, and like the jacks and the tens. I mean, they all have these outstanding traits. They're just so obvious once you see them, you know.
Yeah.
And we look at celebrities a lot just for examples because a celebrity's they're up there in the air, like, you know, they can't really hide stuff, right? So you get to see the whole dirty laundry come out with them because they're being followed around by paparazzi all the time and everybody's seeing everything they do. So they're great examples to study, you know.
Right. Yeah, well, and just for us, I mean, that we kind of have a common knowledge that
Yeah.
that we can draw upon and go, oh yeah, I could see that that card fits them. Just not
Yeah,
even really knowing them.
I've never seen I've never seen a celebrity really be out of character with their card, and it's interesting because the people that are actors, they almost always end up in a movie that matches their card, like the personality of their card. They end up in a movie that matches their life. You know,
Oh,
they end up starring in a movie portraying somebody that has the qualities that they actually have in their own personal life. It's very common that
huh.
happens. Yeah.
I'm wondering too, Robert, what about families? Do you see patterns like is it, I don't know, like all clubs in a family, or is that not good? And I don't mean to say good or
Well,
bad, but
no, well, there's no good and bad, but there are lots of patterns. I've seen families that are all the same suit. I've seen families that are all the same number, you know, all
really?
nines. For example, I had one family I met, the husband, wife, and child were all nines, different nines.
Hmm.
But what happens is we end up in exactly the right family for our particular karma. Everybody does. So whatever patterns there are, like I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers. Two of my siblings are 6 of clubs. Your card. 2 of them. That's a lot. Two of
Yeah.
them are two of them are jack of diamonds. That's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm a queen of diamonds. So, you know, to understand like what the real story was each person in my family had an individual karma. We all are in the same family, but we all had individual experience of our growing up and with our parents and so forth. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
each one of us got our karma met perfectly by the family that we were born into. You know, so you can see interesting patterns in families, but it doesn't really mean anything in a sense that, like, because each individual in that family is there because of something they're learning. Now, an example of this is hearts and spades are the most rare cards. Hearts and spades, like about 12.5% of the birthdays are hearts and 12.5 are spades, something along these lines, very close to this. And I met a family that there were the husband, the wife, and 4 daughters, all hearts.
Huh.
Now, how does that happen? Think about that, because this is one of the most rare suits, and they all end up hearts in this family. And you know,
Yeah.
when you're with a bunch of heart people, I'm a diamond, so I don't relate to hearts that well. It's all about the family. It's all about the family drama. It's all about what's going on with her, and they're always getting together. And I'm a diamond. I don't care if we get together or not. Family, you understand? You know, so everybody gets exactly the family they need. And
Yeah.
but the connections that we have with our family members is amazing when you use a love cards book and you see what the connection is with your father, your mother, your brothers and sisters, and so forth.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned they're all hearts, and then you elaborated about what that means in general. And I found that pretty interesting. Like, it's all about the family and that kind of thing. Can you describe, you know, we have 4 suits. So in general, what are the differences just in the suits?
Well, heart is connected to spring. It's the first season of the year, and it's the first season of our life, the heart season. That's when we're babies and little children, and it's all about love and family, right? Then you go to clubs, and that represents summer, right? It's the clover leaf. And that now you're not with the family. You've been sent off to school now. Now you're in school. Now you're learning. Clubs are all about communications, knowledge, distinctions. Club people are always reading. They can't stop reading. You know, they're looking for the perfect knowledge. You understand? Hearts are looking for perfect love. Then you got diamonds, and that's the harvest season. And diamonds are all about value. We're about money. You know, we're about what's everything worth? What am I worth? And we're always weighing worth. Then you have spades, and the spades are the old people. By the way, if you have a child who's a diamond, they don't want to be treated like a baby. Because they're adults. They're the adults. Like clubs are eternal college students. Okay, hearts are eternal children. Diamonds are adults, and spades are old people. So you can have a child who's a spade, and they'll want to hang out with the grandparents. That's what they'll feel comfortable with. But diamonds will hang out with older children. They want to be with the adults. You know, do you understand?
Yeah.
So spades are all about work and about health. Okay, their big themes are work and health. All the workaholic cards are spades.
Oh,
Okay,
interesting.
And the ones with the most dramatic health issues are spades. Okay, so you take a person of each suit and put them in a room and show them a painting and watch their reaction. You know, the heart will go like, "Oh, I really feel the love in that painting," and the club goes, "I really get the message that artist had."
Uh-huh.
There's a message in there, and I know what it is. And the diamond's like, "How much does that cost?" I would never pay that much for that. It's not worth it, or it is worth it.
Right.
And the spade is looking at it going, "Oh my God, look at all the detail, the work that went into that. Look at the precision. Look at the mastery of the painting and all that." See the difference? That's the difference of the. Now, everybody should know, among your audience, they should know that we're not just this one card, but it is the main card, the birth card. But you have 1 or 2 other cards that are called ruling cards, and they may be a different suit. You may be a combination of 2 or even 3 suits.
Right.
So
Yeah. And can people identify more with the second card, the planetary ruling
yeah,
card, or?
sometimes they do. Sometimes we identify stronger with our ruling card than our birth card. I've met people that I would tell them they would tell me their birthday. I would talk about their card. I go, oh, no, that's not really me. Then I would tell them about the ruling card, and they would go, that's really me. But they're both qualities are there, but we tend to feel more identified to certain parts of our personality at different points in our life. Okay.
Oh,
And I've seen people change. I think ideally we would look at our 2 or 3 cards all together and be able to pinpoint this part of our personality, that part of our personality, and that part of our personality. You know, how they all interact, but they're separate, they're distinct, but they all blend together into who we are. You know.
yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
real.
in your case, you're a double 6, so it's really that's having a double card, like you're a 6 of clubs and a 6 of spades. So they're not very different from each other. You know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Both.
you're different. Like from somebody else might be a 6 of clubs and also an 8 of diamonds, or an 8 of hearts, and that's a completely different blend. Okay.
Well, they're both black cards, right? And you had
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that the red and the black are night and day. And so what
Yeah.
does that mean, night and day?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it means a lot, but you could say I might be a night person if if my cards are black, or
Oh,
like most of my cards are red, and I'm a morning person. You know, if the sun comes up, I don't care if I've only gotten 2 hours sleep. I can't lay in bed anymore. I got to get up.
yeah.
You know, so you know, and my son he's a club and a diamond, so he's got 50-50. My wife is all black cards. Um, she can stay up a lot later than I can.
Oh, wow. Wow. So I'm really caught up though in this accuracy thing because how I want to know, how does this work? How does it work? How does it know? It's just I don't know. Have you ever seen the cards wrong?
No,
No.
no, nobody has really. There can be a situation where we see we see the card show up in a different way than we expected, but it still matches the card meaning. It's just that
Oh.
we had a more or less limited. I mean, in my book, The Cards of Your Destiny, you know, it tells you what any card would mean in every position. And there's like 17 different positions it can be in.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
But that is not the complete interpretation. I mean, there's more. I didn't have the time or energy to write like, you know, the whole thing. And then there's 2 cards together in each period, and you have to combine those together. And, you know, that would mean, just think about it. Okay, 52 cards times 17 positions. That's how many interpretations I had to write. But well, imagine if I had to put those 2 cards together and give a third interpretation for 52 times 52 different combinations of, you know, it would be astronomical, you know.
Well,
But
yeah, and you
so
mentioned that it's mathematical. So it would make sense that you could just keep going and going and going.
Well, I mean, you have these, you know, like you're in the Mercury period right now. You have a King of Hearts and you have a 2 of Spades. Okay, so King of Hearts could be your husband because it's the father card. Uh, it could be somebody you're working with because you have a 2 of Spades. That's a working partnership. It could be a King of Hearts person that you know. You probably haven't. Maybe you've looked everybody up. Maybe you haven't. You should look up everybody you work with as well as your family. You know, like who is this King of Hearts? You know. And so it's with a 2 of Spades, and 2 of Spades means you work together on something. But remember, it's Mercury, so it's not something big. It's not like, oh, we're doing a big project together. We're committing to working together for life. You know, nothing like that. You know,
Yeah.
it's probably more like a friendship thing.
Huh. And what about these predictions? How accurate is that? I mean, and I guess I'm asking these questions because, you know, I think a lot of us think that we have free will and, you know, we're making these decisions, but what I'm hearing is just check the cards and the cards already know.
Yeah, well, here we are in this world, which is completely mind created, by the way, but it does have cycles. There's the birth and death of everything. Everything that's alive, everything that's born dies eventually. That's the what do they call that in physics? I can't remember right now, but everything has a cycle to it. So this system is connected to the cycles of the earth, and by taking it from the point of view of your birthday, you can see the cycles of your life unfolding. Okay. Now, I mean, I could talk about this for hours about like how it all works. We teach people how to take a deck of cards and literally create the entire system by doing a special shuffle, and not a shuffle, but a special laying of the cards and counting them out in certain ways. You can actually create all these yearly spreads with a deck of cards. We teach that.
Mhm.
But we take all that complexity out of it in the book, so you can just look it up and read about it. The book just has them all there for you. You don't have to do all this mathematical, we call it quadration of the deck and so forth, to get these yearly spreads. It's all done for you and laid out for you, so you can look them up really easy.
Yeah. We haven't talked about the Joker yet. That's part of the deck, isn't it? Is there
Yep,
one Joker?
December 31st.
Oh, okay.
Ben Kingsley, um, let's see, Donna Summers, um, uh, Anthony Hopkins, John Denver, all jokers. It's the one card we can't read. We can't do any readings for them
Oh.
because the Joker is no card, and it can be any card. It has a zero value. Every card has a numeric value, but the Joker has a value of 0, which means it's no card, which also means it can become any card. So it's probably the best card in the whole deck to be an actor, because I mean Anthony Hopkins, and Ben Kingsley, like how old are these guys? I mean, they've always looked old or they look young. You can never tell. I mean,
Right.
they're just. Val Kilmer, also Joker. Val Kilmer.
Oh.
It's funny. He had that movie called The Saint. That was called The Saint, where he was like he would like take on these disguises of all these people and become like them. So interesting that he picked that role, but
Yeah.
he's a Joker. So that's the one birthday that we don't. They'll come up and people get really upset about it. Like not Jokers themselves, they don't care. They're like, that's cool. But other people are like, I want to be able to read Jokers. Well, you can't. Well, I'm going to find a way. So they try to come up with a theory or something to how to read a Joker, but they just can't accept that a Joker is a Joker.
Ah. So does that mean you can't do spreads for them or anything like
They
that?
have no spreads.
Wow.
We have no way of knowing what card they're being, and they can change cards at will. So like when you meet a Joker, if you ever meet one, they're going to be somebody to you. They're going to take on some persona for you. I remember I had a neighbor in California who was a Joker, and when I met her, she gave me this really firm handshake, like a guy, and I was like, what's that all about? Why should she give me the firm handshake, as opposed to something else? Like she was being very masculine, so you never know with Jokers,
Hmm.
And I like it. I like that there's this mystery there. There's this card that's the enigma of the card system.
Yeah. I think that is kind of neat. That is,
Yeah.
I actually think I do know a Joker.
You
So,
might. You might.
mhm,
I mean, it's only one
yes.
birthday, so they're a little rare,
Yeah. What's the next rarest birthday?
Well, there's 4 other cards that only have one birthday. King and Queen of Spades and Ace and 2 of Diamonds. I'm sorry, Ace and 2 of Hearts. Those 4 cards only have one birthday. And then when you go to the next ones, they have 2. It's an interesting formula.
Yeah.
And there's 4 cards that have 12 birthdays. The King and Queen of Clubs and the Ace and 2 of Diamonds each have 12 birthdays.
Is that the most?
Yep.
No. Yeah,
That's the
it
most.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's the most. One
Hmm.
each month. That's about it. That's enough.
Yeah. And is there any correlation at all between the zodiac signs and this or no?
Well, we use astrology. You need to know the astrology of a person in order to determine their ruling cards.
Okay.
So like you're a Gemini. So Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So your ruling card is the Mercury card in your life spread. Happens
Oh,
to be the six of spades. Okay. If you had
right.
been a Cancer, like my brother, he's a Cancer, six of clubs. You would then look at the moon card for the six of clubs, which is an eight of hearts. And that's what his ruling card is.
Okay. So that makes more sense now. Planetary ruling card. And
That's
that's where
right.
this astrology. Okay.
So we have a little
Wow.
astrology that's in there. And there's also a decanate ruling card that's we use. And that creates a third card. Not for everybody. You don't have a decanate that's distinguished. Your decanate's the same as your ruling card, so it's like having two cards.
Mm.
Because you're in the first decanate of your sign, first 10 degrees of your sign.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I'm talking, this is like, some of this is complicated stuff, but it's not that. We don't really even do the decanate in the books. We don't even talk about that.
Yeah.
We just teach it in classes.
Yeah.
So forth.
Well, it reminds me of pi, that repeating decimal that goes on forever. I mean, you could pull this thread probably from now until forever and just get into more and more and more detail with with where the cards can take you.
Well, it does get very detailed because, you have these 17 cards in your yearly spread, but you have two spreads because you have two cards. So you actually have 34 cards. And then each of these cards in your yearly spread has two cards under it called underlying cards. And these, this is where we get into the advanced stuff. This is not even taught in the Cards of Your Destiny book, but it gets very in depth for those that have the interest. You don't need to have the interest. I mean, you can just take the Cards of Your Destiny book, and within a few minutes, you're making predictions about the year. Yeah. But people that feel connected to it and really want to learn more, we have a lot more to teach them.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess that's really my question. What's the limitations of the cards? I mean, what limitations do we have? We've been talking about individuals and relationships.
Well, one limitation is we don't have a way to distinguish people born at different times of the day like you do in astrology. So like anybody born on your birthday is going to have the same exact cards, but there's going to be a variety. There's going to be you're going to express it in a different way because each person brings in a unique karma to the situation. You have a lot in common. You have a lot of things similar, but there will be differences in how your life plays out. My sister is a six of clubs, my youngest sister, and that's usually a very successful card, but she hasn't been successful because she had a lot of heavy karma that also is part of being a six of clubs. It's more emphasized in her personality than the average six of clubs person. I think I mentioned to you the challenge for six of clubs is that they're very hard on themselves. So imagine if you magnified that by 10, and then you have my sister, see?
Wow. Yeah.
Who's so hard on herself that she gets in her own way and she stops herself from being successful, even though she would like to be, So there's a lot of room for a variety of expression there, but it would be nice if there was a way to make a distinction between different times of day being born with the cards, and we don't have that yet. I think someday we will. Somebody will figure out how to do that.
Wow. I just look at these cards and I think what an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and our relationships, people in our lives. But I think we're at a time now where so many people want to understand themselves better. I mean, like, I don't think we've ever had this many people trying to figure themselves out like we have now.
I agree with you. I think I've talked about this with other people, and we all agree that the first benefit that people get by learning this system is they get like a picture of themselves that's non-judgmental, but really gives them the truth about themselves without being blamey or judgmental in some way,
Yeah.
So it just lays it out there, and you get to see yourself, get a mirror of yourself. So then when you look at your cards coming up in your yearly spread and you watch how you react, like, are you afraid of this card? Are you so excited about this card? That's another form of a mirror that we have,
Right.
What am I really most afraid of? Well, that's going to teach me. And maybe I may not be in touch with it. Maybe I won't really know why the things that upset me in my life upset me like this. But when you see it in the cards and then it happens and you get upset, and then you have an opportunity to really reflect on, well, what is it? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Even the hardest cards have there's a spiritual solution that can be applied to 7s and 9s, that you can transform that into a really positive situation.
Yeah. I have so much hope for us, I think, with this system, because it does, through your work, it literally puts the system in people's hands, and it's totally up to them as far as how far they take it. And
That's
if
right.
they do the soul searching and the spiritual growth, but what an opportunity, what a gift it is. I really feel like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that. I feel the same way about it. That's why when I discovered it, I didn't really believe it at first. I thought, this can't be true. This can't be. Like, this is like the book of destiny. This is like the book we all been looking for that has your whole life spelled out for you. But I tested it for a year, and it blew my mind, it just over and over again. And then I was convinced, and then I dedicated myself to it at that point.
Yeah. And for all those listeners who want to find out more, and they can even find out their cards on your website. You mentioned it earlier, it's 7thunders.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, the number 7, not the word 7, the number 7 and thunders. And on the very first page, there's a slider. And if you slide it over once, you'll see the free application where you put your birthday in and find out your card and the card you have for this year, what's going on, and this planetary period that you're in right now. Give you a little sample of what's going on. And you can actually look at the next period and the past period too. And the card for the day, it tells you. There's a calculated card for each day for you. A personal card.
I could just go down a rabbit hole and spend
You were born on a Friday,
day.
By the way. You were born on a Friday, just like me.
Oh.
I find that to be very fortunate to be born
really?
on Friday. It's ruled by Venus. It's ruled by Venus. You're a Venus born.
Wow. This has just been so enlightening, so fun and fascinating. And I just want to thank you again, Robert, for joining us here beyond the Reiki Gateway. It's just been phenomenal.
Well, thank you. This was really, really, really nice. I love the way you handled it and the way that we got to talk about it. It was perfect, I think.
Oh, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
This episode is sponsored by the new Mainstream Reiki community, where we bring together Reiki practitioners of all levels, all styles, and lineages to build a supportive, like-minded community, continue our education and practice together so that we can deepen our understanding of Reiki, explore related topics, and empower ourselves and each other to practice Reiki with more confidence. Join us for live Reiki practice, participate in group mentoring sessions, and conversations to share insights and connect with other Reiki practitioners in a welcoming atmosphere, free of social media and advertising. If you'd like to learn more, please visit members.mainstreamreiki.com. Thank you again for joining me. Please check the description underneath this video to learn more, connect with us, and get some important information about your listening experience. Wishing you all the best until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.